A gruesome knife attack in Japan has left dozens of people dead or seriously injured. Japan's NHK says a young man brandishing a knife broke into a facility for the disabled in Sagamihara, Kanagawa Prefecture, just outside of Tokyo on Tuesday at around 2:30 a.m. At least 19 people are feared dead and at least 45 have been injured, 20 of whom are in critical condition. The attacker, a 26-year-old former employee at the facility, later turned himself in to the police. Japanese media reports say that during the incident, the man screamed that he wanted to rid the world of the disabled. The police are investigating possible motives for the crime.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired again. Dickersy 27, what's your 20?
Newton and Rule, shots fired.
Newton and Rule, shots fired. More cars, Newton and Rule.
Good evening. I'm Lori Wilson. An Indianapolis police officer was shot in the city this evening. We are just getting new information from authorities. That officer is alert and conscious with non-life-threatening injuries. We're just hearing that officer was shot in the leg. This started as an attempted traffic stop. Officers thought a vehicle was involved in some nefarious activity, tried to stop that car. That's when the chase began. Again, started on the northwest side, ended in the Twin Air area of Indianapolis. That's a rural and Newton. Shots were also exchanged there. That officer, again, one officer shot in the leg in stable condition at Methodist Hospital tonight. Another officer injured.
Mayor de Blasio and NYPD Commissioner Bratton announced the purchase of another round of tactical equipment to keep NYPD officers safe as they protect our community.
Well, Dana, they made the announcement at the 84th Precinct in Brooklyn, home of officers Lou and Ramos, gunned down in December 2014. In the kind of attack police and city leaders hope this new equipment will prevent.
I think there are about 8.5 million people would like to be doing what I'm doing right now and shaking Sergeant Armani's hand. Well done, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Perhaps no one understands the risk police officers routinely face better than Sergeant Hamid Armani. Wednesday morning in Times Square, a man threw what looked like a bomb into an NYPD van. Sergeant Armani and Officer Pete Cebulski risked their lives by driving the fake bomb a block and a half away from the crowd, protecting bystanders from a possible blast.
And we have to reward that by making sure that our officers have the very best equipment to protect them.
The city announcing today it spent $7.5 million on 20,000 new helmets and 6,000 new vests to protect officers against the growing threat of random attacks.
These helmets have the same level of protection as the one, I'm sure as many of you saw, that probably saved the life of one of the cops in Orlando. So the vests we're getting are rated a step higher than the bullet-resistant vests our officers already wear under their uniforms.
Though it'll take a while for the manufacturer to make enough vests and helmets to outfit the more than 35,000 NYPD officers, the department has already equipped patrol vehicles with ballistic doors, new tasers, smartphones, and iPads.
A Christian baker is headed to the Supreme Court after a lower court ruled he cannot refuse to bake cakes for gay weddings. Jack Phillips, owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado, refused to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple because he says it violated his religious beliefs. But a federal court ruled he could not cite his faith as a reason to decline baking the cake. His attorney filed a petition to the Supreme Court Friday saying no one should be forced to further a message they can't in good conscience promote.
We first introduced you to Ash Whitaker last spring when he was fighting for the right to run for prom king at Kenosha's Tremper High School. Students rallied around their transgender classmate. The 16-year-old was born a female but realized at a young age that he identified as a male. After actually telling Whitaker that he must run for prom queen, the Kenosha Unified School District eventually allowed him to run for prom king. Leaders insisted he use the women's bathrooms or private facilities separate from other students.
Transgendered youth are struggling with the issue of their identity, but if they're not received well by people around them, then they can have additional psychological problems. And so this has been very stressful for him.
School district's actions were discriminatory and violated Title IX. The Transgender Law Center has now filed a lawsuit on Whitaker's behalf in federal court.
The degree to which the administration has just continued to harass him over and over and raising the stakes when you'd think it'd be the opposite. You'd think they'd be looking for a way to make his life at that high school more pleasant.
The Syrian asylum seeker who blew himself up outside a bar in the German town of Ansbach is now known to have pledged allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State.
Bavarian Interior Minister Joachim Herrmann said on Monday that security officials found a video on the attacker's mobile phone that captured his pledge of allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State militant group. It also showed the 27-year-old threatening a revenge attack on Germans.
On the mobile phone, there is a corresponding video of the perpetrator issuing an attack threat in Arabic. According to this, he expressly announces, in the name of Allah, and testifying his allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a famous Islamist leader, an act of revenge against the Germans because they are standing in the way of Islam, and as retribution for the killing of Muslims.
Other Islamic video contents were also discovered on storage devices at the 27-year-old attacker's home, along with various materials that could be used to make a bomb. The minister said that an investigation into the content of the videos is still ongoing, but based on the evidence so far, the attack is likely an act of terror inspired by extremist Islamic beliefs.
Germany has beefed up security across the country following a string of assaults attributed to asylum seekers in recent days. The German Interior Minister Thomas de Maizière says that he has demanded the police visibly ratchet up their presence at airports, train stations and elsewhere in the wake of the attacks. He urged German people not to panic. He also warned against indiscriminately labeling refugees as a security threat, stressing that he's opposed to placing all asylum seekers under suspicion.
Now, there are growing signs that North Korea may be plotting measures of revenge, possibly on South Korean nationals abroad. This follows cases of mass defections by North Koreans to the South in recent months.
North Korea may be planning a terrorist attack or a kidnapping attempt of South Korean nationals in China and Southeast Asia.
There have been no specific incidents to speak of, but our sources have indicated that North Korea has made known its possible attempts for revenge.
These possible attacks are believed to be a measure of retaliation following the mass defection of North Koreans who worked at a state-run restaurant in China earlier this year. Seoul admitted the defectors on humanitarian grounds, but Pyongyang said the affair was a hideous luring and abduction of its citizens by the South Korean government. According to sources in Beijing, there have been signs that North Korea is considering various options for attack on South Korean nationals, such as joining hands with local gangs or dispatching its agents to China and Southeast Asia. Last month, 800 North Korean intelligence agents reportedly crossed over to the bordering Chinese cities of Tandong and Yenji, where they are currently operating. South Korea's foreign ministry says the likely targets include government workers, missionaries, students and residents.
Turkey's casting suspicions much further afield in the aftermath of that big failed coup, now implicating its supposed NATO ally, the United States. Lizzie Phelan's got more on this. Let's see where this is going then. Hi, Lizzie. There's been some big verbal sparring between the States and Turkey since this attempted coup. Where's this latest twist and turn heading?
It seems with every day since that failed coup attempt over a week ago, tensions are rapidly escalating between the US and Turkey. The latest that we have is the Turkish Justice Minister blaming none other than the US President Barack Obama for knowing about that failed coup attempt. He said he knew about the July 15th coup attempt, quote unquote, as much as he knows his own name, and added, "I'm sure that the US intelligence and US Secretary of State knew about it, I'm absolutely sure, he said. On top of that, today, a leading pro-government newspaper, Yeni Safak, was published a headline blaming U.S. Commander General John F. Campbell of being one of the top figures behind the failed coup. This newspaper alleges that General Campbell handled some $2 billion of transactions via a Nigerian bank and used CIA connections to distribute those funds to pro-coup plotters. Now, these accusations are only going to stoke what seems to be rising anti-American sentiment in Turkey, to the extent that many last night were speculating that a fire that broke out near a NATO base in the western city of Izmir was an act of anti-American sabotage. And that fire comes after there was a temporary suspension of operations at the Incirlik base, which is the most important military base in Turkey for the United States, that prompted the Pentagon press secretary, Peter Cook, to say that the U.S. can continue its operations in the region without the base.
Well, we're now starting to gather some pictures of the impacts of the 6.2 magnitude earthquake in northern Chile that happened really not all that long ago. It happened this afternoon. I have to say, and I will say this very cautiously, so far, we haven't seen any pictures of massive damage or anything like that. This does not appear to be a catastrophic type of event. Like I said, we'll say that cautiously because this is still pretty fresh. But the earthquake, by the way, I mentioned northern Chile, about 40 miles west-northwest of Diego de Almagro, which is a city that has about 20,000 people or so. So, again, as things develop here, we'll keep you updated. Hopefully things work out for the better. 6.2 is a very significant earthquake, though. It actually caused a landslide here. Haven't heard any reports of people injured or deaths or anything like that, so we'll hope that good news continues. So we have two big fires going on in California right now. One of them is called the Sand Fire. That's been burning near the city of Santa Clarita. That's north of L.A. And this fire is pretty much burning out of control because it's in really hot, dry canyons. This thing has burned more than 50 square miles. And then on top of that, you've got another fire that's burning up to the north, about 300 miles north of there in the Big Sur region. That one's burned about 20 square miles, and it's threatening thousands of homes. Now, near the Sand Fire, there are thousands of people that have been evacuated from communities north of L.A., and at least 18 homes have already been destroyed there. In fact, a man was found dead in his car near one of those homes on Saturday, so very sad story there. Authorities are investigating that, and in the meantime, nearly 3,000 firefighters, along with helicopters, are battling that Sand Fire.
That dangerous heat in the west reaching coast to coast. Tonight, heat advisories are now up in 14 states. In the east, from North Carolina right up to Massachusetts. More than 50 million people in the zone, and that heat has turned deadly. So far this year, 21 children have now died in hot cars. The latest just yesterday in Dallas, a 2-year-old left in the family van outside their church. The heat firing up severe storms for millions in the Northeast. This lightning hitting the Empire State Building just moments ago.
There's a dust storm out here, and it's still 6 billion degrees. Lord, I want to ask you why? Why today? Why is Satan winning this battle, this war? We gonna come together, everybody, and rebuke the devil in Arizona. We need prayer. We need everybody to come together, and we need everybody to pray. I don't care what state you in. I don't care what degrees you have in. Arizona needs some prayer. Arizona needs some help, because it's hot. It's hot, and some of us can't take it no more. You see this wind? You see my shirt flopping around? It's still hot out here, and I still gotta walk. Lord, we need you. We need you.
It's the worst drought in more than 2 decades, and it has plunged the southern African region into its worst food crisis. 18 million people need emergency food assistance in 7 countries. Lesotho, Madagascar, Mozambique, Swaziland, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi have all had their crops severely affected by the El Niño-induced drought. With the World Food Programme declaring the region as a level 3 emergency, The agency is rapidly scaling up life-saving operations to help millions of hungry people.
This year, because of the drought, the needs are so great, and the domestic food stocks are so depleted. We're just after the harvest, but these are people who just have enough food for only a few more weeks.
The UN Food Agency would like to reach out more, but resources are already strained.
That is our biggest challenge, is to raise the funds from donor governments around the world to enable us to respond to the huge needs.
Hey, check out this amazing show that is brought to us, of course, by our own sun. Solar material just repeatedly bursting from the sun there. Now, this video was, of course, captured by NASA and the Solar Dynamics Observatory, which is basically a spacecraft that it sent out in 2010, specifically just to study the sun. Now, these solar flares happened earlier this month, and they're absolutely massive. I mean, each one of them bigger than the size of the Earth. Now, the sun is composed of plasma, so it's basically like a giant nuclear reactor, and what's happening here was not visible to our human eyes. Why would you be looking at the sun anyway, though, right? NASA captured the video in extreme ultraviolet wavelengths, and then basically it colored it red just to make it easier to see and make it look a little more like the sun.